What's going on, guys? Welcome to this episode of the Cynexlink Podcast. Today, I'm with my friend Kul. What's going on? Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, my man.
Oh, thank you so much, Adam, for having me. It's an honor to be here. Um, do you want me to go with quick
No,
introduction?
no, no. Yeah. So, if you want to just kind of get started by letting us know a little bit about yourself, kind of a little background and everything, we can kind of get going.
Yeah, sure. So at present, I am the Director of Security Compliance and Security Officer at Genome Medical. And I have been doing cybersecurity for over 15 years or so, and during which I have had privilege to work with different kind of industries, like including healthcare, technology, finance, payment industry and all. And in most of those roles, most of the companies, they have been working mostly about how to protect our organization's data, manage risks, and the most important thing is create or foster a culture of security awareness across the board. That's what generally I do. And as we know, the cybersecurity is fascinating, right? But it is at the same time, it's an ever evolving space where I'm very excited to dive into today's discussion. What you have? If you have any question, please feel free to ask me.
No, no, I'm gonna go ahead and ask you a ton of questions for sure. So, in your industry, what do you see the biggest challenges are when it comes to securing an infrastructure?
Well, that's a great question. So, a key part of my role, I will say that's is basically balancing security needs with the business objectives. But the key challenge, what you're asking, there are many, I would say, but one of the key part is your risk management, right? At the end of the day, it's all about managing risk and understanding the potential impact of those breaches that happens. And these days, unfortunately, most of the companies, especially in my industry, we're seeing that a lot. It has increased, drastically over last couple of years, I would say.
Mhm. And from your perspective, like how do you like if you were to recommend companies to stay up to date with everything they need to do to stay ahead of these issues, like what type of security protocols or anything in specific that you feel like maybe companies are lacking or missing that they should look into?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think, certainly I would like to deep dive into that one. Cybersecurity or overall security, that can be overwhelming because of, today's threats and, which is constantly evolving. And we know that, we are trying our best. Every company, they're trying to do their best to kind of get to the point. But it really boils down to this, right? Security is about minimizing the risk, right? Not eliminating it, right? We cannot say we are 100% secure, something like that. And what I'm seeing based on the report that we see, not just I'm just saying it, but everybody see that with the current trend, things have changed drastically, right? The landscape of our security has been taking a big change because of our current AI, ML, and whatnot. So I recommend certainly for any company, they need to start working on their basic foundation first, right? When I say I can deep dive into that, but that's a very critical part, having the right technology in place. I mean, of course, your people is there, but make sure they are getting trained, use the right technology, and have one of the key thing people they miss about policies and procedures, right? If you don't have the right thing in place, people will not know about those kind of things. So these are three things I would say is very high level, but certainly we can deep dive into that.
Go ahead, I'm all listening.
Yeah, no, sure. So I think one of the key thing I would say, have your incident response plan in place, right? That's one of the things most of the companies I see when I talk to them, they are missing it. And the reason I'm saying because there are different varieties of breaches these days, we see that. And not to mention, not just ransomware, but also we have supply chain attacks, right, going on. So if you have a right incident response plan in place, certainly we can do a lot better, that, we used to say hey, if this happens, we will do that. But things have changed. It's not if, but when it happens, what you're going to do that, right? So when you talk about when, that certainly that talks about, okay, so these are steps that we want to do, right? So that what I would say.
I see. And then so how do you recommend companies train their employees like when it comes to security? Any specific processes that you tend to follow?
Yeah, that's a great question again. So security training is one of the key thing we know that. So I would recommend have that embed that into your onboarding process, right? That's the very first thing you want to do that. Like there are many other things that people, when they come on board, they have to go through, like, your handbook, company policy, keep that, embed that into into that system, onboarding system. That's the number one. I mean, that is not just good enough, right? Having just during the onboarding, you do that. Rather have that at least annual, training in place. Number two, right? But number three, which is most critical, I would say, is have a frequent dialogue, like, whether brown bag sessions, right? Have some kind of like, hackathon, like, it doesn't need to be like, only engineering team. It could be business, legal, or marketing team, right? Have some kind of trivia, during the session. So that will give them more awareness. And I think like, it has worked pretty well, which I'll tell you in a minute. When you have this kind of culture in place, you will see a lot of people, they are really into cybersecurity. They would love to know more about security, right? And they will immediately respond to some of the things which they see first, right? So you want to encourage that kind of culture, and at the end, you want to really recognize those kind of people, award some kind of recognition. So that culture will really help, overall in the organization. That okay, hey, why this person got recognized because of so and so, not just about recognition, but also about behind the scene what was done, right? So
Mhm.
that'll be
What
very.
what about the flip side? So like what if you have like an employee who constantly fails like phishing tests and it's constantly like
Yeah.
causing breaches and issues?
No, again, very great point. And that's the reason I mentioned about policies in place, right? So if you have those kind of things, and like, defined, well defined, I would say, in policy, what are the consequences. So exactly to your point, like, there are employees who are really reluctant to taking care of those kind of things, or, purposefully or unknowingly, they're clicking every time those phishing things, right? Whether it's simulation or the real one, that means you got to go through some kind of consequences. So have those written somewhere, documented. That'll help.
I see, I see. So looking back in your career now versus like where you are today, I'm very curious, like what's best piece of advice that you wish somebody gave you when you first started that you know now that you didn't know back then?
Yeah, one thing, yeah, this is very interesting. The reason I'm saying, because I was also kind of like, on the same boat as you said, right? When you're working on something like, I started my career as a software engineer, took some other roles about technical architect and whatnot. So when you're doing your work, you're so much into that, you forget about other things. Like, so one thing I learned, I mean, people used to tell, my leaders used to tell that time that, you got to stay current. Like, you got to be knowing what's going on around you, not just what work you're doing, right? So certainly I would recommend, or I would suggest new generation, or, whoever is aspiring IT or cybersecurity people, to stay curious, to stay current, like go and read some articles, and most importantly, build your foundation. And what I mean, again, I said earlier, go for some certifications, like learn like new technologies. That's the one thing. But at the same time, one of the things which I miss, like again, I'm improving on that one. Develop your soft skills, like in your communication, collaboration, and your problem solving skills. These are very key. Like these are not really technical, right? You're solving some typical technical problems, but these are totally different. So if you do these kind of things, developing those soft skills, that is going to help you in the long run.
You know, it's interesting. How much of succeeding in cybersecurity is it technical versus the soft skills? Like if you were to say 50-50, 30-60, like what do you think that divides that?
Okay, so again, it's a perspective, and
Yeah,
everybody has
yeah,
an opinion, right?
yeah.
I would say, like 30% cybersecurity, 70% other stuff, which is not just a soft skill, I would say, right? A lot of other things comes into picture, right? Because you got to cybersecurity, we say like, okay, it's a technical thing, but it is not, right? You're trying to enable your business, right? It is not really one thing done. It's not like that. You got
Yeah.
to understand that security is just, it's a one part, one equation, right? And that has to be embedded to all your, different organizations, right? So I would say like that. I don't know if people will agree with me or not, but to me, if you are aware, if you know about what's going around you, and develop your other skills as well, it becomes easier. I'm not saying it's kind of like, done, but it becomes easier for you to handle those kind of situations.
I love that you said that because like I think people that are listening are gonna be like, What? How does that make any sense? Because it's a big thing that people don't realize. Like in any career, I feel like management or succeeding at a high level, it's like a portion of it has to do with the actual skill, you know?
No,
Everything.
absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. Yep.
So, so kind of bring me down like now in terms of like futuristic technologies. What do you see like how do you see how have you seen the landscape evolve over the last like let's say 5, 10 years? And what major trends do you kind of see coming in the future?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would say like, what we have been seeing in last like, decade or so, right? Uh, we were kind of like, in the stage where we're talking about AI, ML, those kind of things. But now if you see in the recent years, not even like, 1, 2, like 3, 4 years, we have been seeing that um, things have drastically changed. The landscape of the cybersecurity is changed. That's the one piece of it. And at the same time, because of these kind of threats, right? A lot of compliance is coming into picture, right? I'm not talking about just GDPR or HIPAA. There are many others that is coming at the state level too, right? That goes hand in hand, right? Compliance is just a checkbox as you can do that. But again, there is, certain reasons why we are doing it, right? So now I'm seeing that the landscape is really like, getting reshaping it basically, right? So we have to make sure that we understand the current technology. So, we got to come up with the mix of the strategy, like, have those technology in place, have the right resources who are trained on those things, and most importantly, have that culture of your security awareness across the board, right? From C-level to everyone, all employees in the team.
I love it. I love it. And then, from, the perspective, obviously, again, it's all your perspective and how you're seeing things. Do you see like the rise of AI and machine learning more of an asset to cybersecurity or a potential threat?
It comes with both, actually, I would say, right? It is an amazing, era. I would say we are living in amazing era because of AI, Gen AI. We talk about that, but it comes with both. It has a lot of potential, like a lot of opportunity, but at the same time, we have, threat, right? And that threat is not same as what it used to be 5 years, 10 years ago. It has
Yeah.
changed, right? We are trying to use our Gen AI to protect, to have like, your enhanced threat mechanism, like, enhanced, threat detection and response at the same time, threat hunting kind of thing, right? But at the same time, those bad actors, they are using the same technology, right? So this is really, is boiled down to like, how efficient we are, how proactively we are working on things. So it's both actually. I would not say it's like, only positive thing, but at the same time, we have some opportunity where we need to work proactively. We cannot rely only on our, people, but rather go with like, technology, make use of that to defend ourselves, to defend our, asset, people, data, your IP.
I love it. I love it. So I kind of want to guide this into like more leadership questions. I'm curious, how do you prioritize, or from your perspective, how do you recommend a company prioritizes investments within their cybersecurity infrastructure, specifically within let's say, a time of like right now, the market's not doing so great, right? There's a lot of companies that have thin budgets. So how do we prioritize certain investments over others? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, that's again, that's a great question, especially in today's date. Yeah, it is very important, right? We want to make sure, especially, from investor standpoint, right? I believe that's what you're talking about. How investors like, can make a decision, okay, where should we invest and where not. That's the one part, but how we can make our product or services better so that we can attract our investors, correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So I would start with like, certainly security is one aspect we're talking about. There are multiple others, but I'll focus on only security side of it, right? Uh, we should make sure that there is a good balance of security enablement plus how we are taking or making like a use of our new technology. And if we can embed those together in our product, for example, we are trying to create like, a product or service that we have to balance that. And by the way, this is one of the big challenge in security leadership, like, how to make sure like, we don't have like, too much stricter, security frameworks because, that's going to be frustrating for a lot of users that we see that, right? So we got to have balance in that too, right? So coming back to your point, like, if we can have that kind of balance in place where we have a good security framework, which is robust enough and it has a minimal, intrusion basically to make sure, like, it's not just like, we are creating a good product, but at the same time, it's more user convenience is, taken care of, like, so I would say, like, those kind of things should be in place. That will create, like, that will attract a lot of, like, our investors, and that will make our product or any organization services better.
Mm, I see. I see. So, final question for you, just, kind of wrap it up and we go from there. I really appreciate your time, by the way. These answers have been very well structured. I appreciate it.
Sure.
So, what are kind of the biggest misconceptions you've seen in the cybersecurity field, either from like businesses or individuals, especially in today's world?
Misconception, yeah. So from my experience, I have found that, like, the security awareness, like, that's one of the things that is lacking in today's date. People, they take it for granted. Okay, we're done, done, right? So that certainly is like one of the things that is, we are lacking today. And one of the biggest challenge we are facing today, which I think I did not mention earlier, but we should certainly talk about that. Our third party risk, like managing third party risk, that's very critical these days because we see a lot of breaches happening because of that. So we want to make sure, like, we have a right framework in place when we onboard any kind of, like, third party vendors, because bad actors, they are trying to kind of, like, use them as a small company or like your third party vendors to or gain an access to those bigger or larger organizations. So certainly these are the things I would suggest
I
to have
love
that.
it. I love it. I love it. Cool. Where can people find you online if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My profile is simple there. Just search for Kul Bhushan, San Francisco, Bay Area. I think I could be fine with there.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And for everybody that's watching, if you guys enjoyed, please remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. All right. Thank you.